Debbie from Lime Doodle Design, and today for Sam's Stamp I'm back with a look at how to stretch our supplies that little bit further. I love flowers and find the images of flowers very useful in card making, so when I get new supplies I often look to see if there are any shapes that could represent a flower. The carrot top in the springtime shaped dies, I thought that looked like a tulip, and equally the carrot top in this plush little carrot die, I thought that could represent the flower stem. I've placed some Nina Solar White card inside the Mini Misty, and I'm going to use the pattern swatches stamp set to stamp some colourful designs to die cut the tulip and stems from. I'm inking up the negative polka dot design with Sam's Stamp apricot ink, and then for the other design that's a random stripe one, I'm going to use catkin ink. I find with solid images such as these it's worth stamping them a couple of times to get a really good impression. And also with a dye ink, when you stamp them, they stamp slightly blotchy and darker than they will do once they've had time to smooth and soften out and lighten in colour. Here's the swatch I stamped when prepping for this card, and you can see how much lighter the true final colour is. I'm going to die cut the carrot top from the plush little carrot dies from the catkin swatch, and then I'm going to cut the carrot top from the springtime shapes dies from the apricot swatch. Although the flower stem has leaf-like shapes coming out the sides, I wanted something a little more lifelike, so I'm going to use the leaves from the springtime chicken set. And you can get 2 of those leaves from each of the catkin swatches along with the flower stem. I've kept the dies in place with washi tape and then run that through the die cutting machine. And when you pop these shapes out of these dies, you're left with some pretty pattern pieces to make up into tulips. I've stamped and die cut a bunch more of these so I can make up several tulips to put on my card. To adhere the flowers together, I'm going to use some Ranger Multi-Medium and Matte, and I've squirted a little bit of that onto some scrap card, and then I'm going to dip the pieces into that and then attach them together. I'm using my grid mat to make sure that my tulip heads are on straight, and then I'm going to dip the tip of a couple of leaves into the glue and then pop those on the sides. I've continued on to glue 3 tulips to put on my card, and I'm going to use some marshmallow cardstock for the panel that I'm going to place these tulips onto, and I want to add a little bit of colour to this panel, so I'm going to blend in some sea glass ink using a Ranger Mini blender. The sea glass ink is a lovely light colour, so it doesn't have the issues that perhaps a darker colour would in trying to get a nice smooth blend, but always with ink blending you want to start off the panel and bring in lots of little circles, lots of light layers, and then build that colour up. As you can see, the sponge of my ink blending tool has seen better days. However, I quite like it like that. They go soft and they have that residual ink build-up from previous use. I've sped that bit of the video up as it really does take some time to get lots of light layers going, but once I was finally happy with the amount of ink that I'd got down, I'm then going to cut the panel with a stitch rectangle. I'm going to run that through the die cutting machine, and I'm also going to run another piece of marshmallow card through with the stitch rectangle, but I'm only going to partially die cut because I only actually want the bottom piece. I'm then going to run that partial piece through with a wavy scallop stitches die, and that's going to create a nice hill for the tulips to sit on. I'm going to use the sentiment from the Friendship Bloom set. I thought that sentiment would snuggle nicely in the top left hand corner. So I'm going to place the cardstock in the Misty, position the sentiment in that top corner, and I'm going to stamp with VersaFine Smoky Grey. This is pigment ink, and I find on cardstock such as this Marshmallow from Basil, which is very absorbent, the pigment ink will sit on the top of the absorbent cardstock and it will still give a nice crisp impression. I've decided I want one more element to this card, so I've picked out the swirly cloud from the Cloudy Sky set, and I'm going to stamp that in fossil ink and then cut out through the die cutting machine with its matching die. It's now time to put this card together, and I've cut an A2 card base from some fog card which I thought went well with the soft colours, and I've added foam adhesive to the back of everything. For me, adding dimension to a clean simple card really takes it up a notch. So I'm starting at the base and I'm adding the marshmallow panel to the card base, and then in turn the stitched hill and then the tulips. I've used the grid mat to help me place the first tulip in the centre of the panel and then placed a tulip on either side. I added the cloud in place, but then I thought, you know what, this seems a little big for this card, so I went back to the Cloudy Skies stamp set and I actually picked out a smaller cloud. It was a stripy one, and I stamped that again in fossil ink and die cut it with the matching die, and then I decided which one I actually preferred, whether I preferred the smaller one or the larger one, and I actually thought I preferred the smaller one. So I added foam adhesive to the back of that and popped it on the card, and then dug out my sequins. I always like adding sequins, I think they add a nice finishing touch, and I'm attaching those with some Ranger Multi-Medium and Matte. And that completes this card, stretching the use of our dies by using carrot tops from the plush little carrot dies and the springtime shaped dies to create a row of tulips. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.